So yesterday we started automation testing, and the first thing we spoke about was how Agile forced every QA to become, an automation tester. And I explained to everybody how, you can be in a sprint and be doing manual testing plus regression testing. There'll be no time for that. So the way around that is to have yourself automate some of your regression test cases so that way you don't get burned out. Then we spoke about the automation tool that we're going to use, and we mentioned Selenium. And I told you why Selenium is the most popular tool out there. One of the reasons is it's free, so folks like free stuff. The other reason is Selenium integrates itself with so many other programming languages, so it's quite flexible. Then we moved on to the programming language that we are going to use in this program, in this training program, and that is Java. And I told you the reason why we chose Java, and that's because Java is, number one of the most popularly used languages by developers. Number two is Java is quite stable and is also quite easy to read, compared to the other languages. But as I said, once you learn Java, you can learn any other programming language pretty easily, like Python, C#. There are so many others out there that you can pick up. Then we spoke about the IDE for Java. So we said IDE is where you write your Java code. And in this course, we're going to be using Eclipse as IDE. Then we got started, and I told you guys the version of the Java you're using. It's not really an interview question, but it's always nice to know. It just shows that you are one of us when you know the version of Java you have on your machine. So that was what we did yesterday before the power went off. And when we started Java, we started off with the data types that we have in Java. So a quick recap. So we spoke about the Boolean data type. We spoke about the char or character data type. We spoke about the integer data type. And we spoke about the double or float data type. I told you guys string is also a data type, but string itself is a class on its own, so that's why string is not on this table. Then we moved on to the operators, and I told you guys operators is really your engine room. Operators allows you to manipulate data. It allows you to do many stuff that would help you in your regression testing. So the most popular operators are arithmetic. So we spoke about, how to add two numbers, subtract, divide, multiply, and modulus. And I told you guys that modulus, we use it to find odd numbers and even numbers. It's essentially a remainder. It shows you when you divide, then it shows you the remainder. Then we moved on to relational. And relational, you guys should be very familiar with this now from SQL. So we spoke about the greater than, the less than or equal to, greater than or equal to, not equals to. And this should be down here. Then we moved on to logical. And in logical, we did the and, the or, the not equals to, and the double equals to. Assignment, this is when you're trying to assign a value to a variable, and you're going to use this a lot. A is equal to 2, 3 is equal to 4, A is equal to C. You're most likely doing some assignment. And I told you guys the difference between the single equals to and the double equals to. Then we spoke about the increment data type. And I said a lot of the times you'll be counting because you want to go in some kind of loop. An increment allows us to always add 1 to a variable. And we use that a lot in counting. If I want to count forward, I will use the plus plus, meaning 111. If I want to count backwards, I can use the decrement, which is minus minus. Then we had some exercise in class where everybody brought out their Eclipse, and we tried to print the sum of two numbers. I think we did that. And we also tried to write a program to swap two numbers. Then we moved on to conditional statements. And I think this was where we were when the light went off. So conditional statements are very, very popular for QAs because all we're doing really is we are running a test case. And if the test case fails, we don't want the program to crash because we probably have 10 other test cases you want to test. So this is your way of telling Java that if you run this test case and it fails, do this. If you run this test case and it passes, do this. So we call this conditional statements. And we have 4 different types of statements. We have the if statement, we have the if and else statement, we have the if else if statement, and we have the switch case statement. So we tried the first one in class. We did the if statement, and this is a very simple example where you want something to get printed out when the age, excuse me, when the age given to you is greater than 18. So as you can see in here, this will get printed out in your console because this is 20. But if I was to change this number to say 10 or less than 18, then Java would not execute this printing. So that's how you use your if and else statements. Yesterday in class as well, I showed you how to create a Java project. So we started with a hierarchy where we have, just bring up my notes, where the hierarchy typically starts off with a Java project. Then you create a package. Then in your package, you're going to have classes in your package. And in classes, or in a class, we're going to have multiple methods. You could have one method, you could have 2 or 3 or 4 methods. And I also told you guys that we have something called the main method. And the main method, it's where Java starts from. So when you're trying to run a Java program, Java knows that you can have multiple classes, with multiple methods. So Java tries to find the main method and it starts from there. And how do you tell, or how can you tell if a class has a main method? You'll most likely see this keyword, main, with this string, array. I'm going to explain public static void later on, but for now, just know that every main method has this code, main. Then we spoke about the scope, and that was when we talked about the curly braces. Java has a way of grouping things together based on the hierarchy. So this first curly brace is for the class. So you can see the class, you're telling Java, hey Java, my class is starting from here, and my class is going to finish right here. Then the next hierarchy is the main method. So this is where also a curly bracket is telling Java, now you're now in the main method, and the main method goes all the way and it ends right here. The next hierarchy is your if statement. So we're saying Java, for this condition, if it's true, the scope starts from here and the scope ends here. Then we moved on as well to a few syntax of Java. Very similar to SQL, every Java syntax needs to end with a semicolon. So you notice, and if you forget this, you're very lucky. You have Eclipse. Eclipse will tell you, what the problem is. We also showed you guys how to print. This is quite popular. You'll be using this a lot because your printing is how you communicate with the outside world. And you won't be there as well when you're running your automation script. You might go grab coffee and maybe go home and come back the next day to see your results. So it's whatever you print out that lets you know if your test case passed or failed. Then we spoke also about how to print using concatenation, where you can combine a string with a variable like an integer, a boolean, a character. And I told you guys a string is represented with double quotes. So whenever Java sees any text or any data that has double quotes, oh, Java knows that's a string. I also taught you the difference between printing on a single line and printing on the same line. So we did that by using println and print. So that was the if statement. Then we moved on to the if-else statement. And this one is when you have two conditions. So if your test case passes, you want to do something. But if it fails, you also want to do something else. And the way to achieve that is to say, Java, if this condition is true, please print this. Else, please print this. Now, you're very lucky that Eclipse, the moment you type in if, Eclipse probably create the if-else command for you with all the brackets. But be very careful. New people to programming, they sometimes miss out a bracket here or there, and that would not make your program run properly. So I believe we tried this out in class as well, the if and else statement. Then the third one we did was, what if I have multiple conditions? I have not just two, maybe 3, 4, 5 different conditions or outcomes that I want Java to go down on. And I said, then we use the if and else if. Don't forget there's always a space between your else if, but if you don't put the space in there, Eclipse would help you and tell you what you've done wrong. So in this example here, this is a very simple grading code that grades students at BusyQA based on your exam scores. And this is how we did it. To say, if your mark is less than 50, you fail the program, you fail the course. If your marks is between 50 and 60, you get a D grade. And it goes on and on to all the grades. And else, the last one is saying, if you got something not in this range, then your grade is invalid. So that's the if, else, if statement. And if you have any question, just go off mute and you can always ask me your question. Okay, so the next one is the switch statement. And the switch statement does the same thing as the if, else, if statement. Some developers like the switch statement because you can achieve the same thing with less code. So let's watch this right here. This is essentially the same thing where I have 3 different conditions for Java, and I'm saying based on the number I give you, if that number is 20, so Java knows, oh, it's 20. Java comes here and it prints out this 20. If it was 30, Java comes here, it prints out 30. If it was 10, Java comes here and it prints out 10. Else, if the number is not 10, 20, or 30, Java comes and prints not in 10, 20, or 30. So I don't like the switch because it's not English natural to me. I typically remember this. If something is this, do this. Else, if it's, this is more English language like, but developers claim switch makes things go, it makes your code run faster. Now, the switch has a few rules. The first is your condition. So this could be a condition here, just as I can put if marks greater than 50. So that's my condition in there. It also has a break statement. So if you notice here, after every what you want Java to do, you also put in a break statement right after your condition. This break statement doesn't have to be on the same line. I only put it here to make it fit, onto the slide. it can look like this, where you have your case, you have the value, you have the code, and you can break. Then the same thing, you have your case, you have your value, you can break. And the else, which is your default, you have what Java needs to do. So let's quickly open up our Eclipse, and let's type out this command, and let's make sure that you tell me what you got. You should get 20. You should get this, systemout.print 20. So what I would do is, because it's an online class, I would just copy. I'm going to cheat. I'm just going to copy this, create a new class, and quickly run it so everyone can see my results. Okay, so I have a class. I'm going to call this switch. I'll make it a main method. I'll press finish. And I'll copy that code and just paste it here. Uh-oh, that's not what we wanted. Let's try it again. So I'll do this. Doesn't like me copying it. Okay, let's try to paste it here first. Uh-oh, not a good idea. All right, I'm just going to type it out. So what we have is int number is 20. I have my switch statement, and the condition is number. That could be anything. It could be I'm checking something, and I'm going to open up my bracket. And my first condition, we'll call it case. So I can say if the number is 10, then do something. I can say system.out.print. The number is 10. I can do another one, case 20. I can say system.out.print. The number is 20. Okay. Then don't forget, I'm missing my break statement already. That's why I don't like this switch syntax. Then the last one is your default. So in your default, you tell Java what to print when there's no match. System out print. No match. Do we have a break statement in the default? Let's see. Okay. No. All right. So we can run this now, and I think we should get back the number is 20. So always save your code. Control S to save, and you push the green button, and that would run, and you can see the number is 20. If I was to change the number to 10, and I save my code, and I run this as well, I get the number is 10. If I was to make the number 35, I save my code, and I run this, I get no match. So that's what we call the conditional statement. In an interview, they might ask you that, tell me some conditional statements that you normally use. And most of the time, we tell them the if else, the if else if, or you can also use the switch statement. All right, so we can actually, well, I think because of time, in class, typically I tell you guys to write me a Java program to check if a number is even or odd. I can tell you to print the greatest number of 3 numbers. So these are things we do in class. Because this is an online class, I'll ask you guys to try a few of them yourselves. And when we come to class next week, maybe we can revisit this in-class exercises. But the first one, the trick is here, is your modulus, right? If you have a modulus divided, if there's a number 1, you know it's odd. If the modulus divides it and there's no remainder, then you know it's even. Print the greatest of three numbers. That's your if, else, if, right? If A is greater than B and A is greater than C, A is the greatest. If A is greater than, then you go else. If B now. If B is greater than A and if B is greater than C, then print B is the greatest. Else C is the greatest. So that's how we do this one. But you can try it out. Try out number 3 when you get when you're home, and we'll talk about it in the next class. Okay. Now the next thing you need to know as a QA in Java is what we call loops. And what is loop? From the name, it means you're going around in a circle for a period of time. And loops helps us in regression testing because sometimes your software, you have to do something. Let me give you a very good test case. A lot of us, we have a bank ATM card, and your ATM card, it has a business rule that says if you provide the PIN number wrong 3 times, the bank will keep your card as a security measure. And you can do this manually because maybe you put the card in, you put the wrong PIN number, it tells you, uh-oh, try again. You do it again, uh-oh, try again. The 3rd time you're doing that, the bank should keep your card. Now, how do we mimic this in automation? We use what we call loops. So loop is a way of telling Java to go around in a circle as many times as you want it to go around. And there are different types of loops that we normally use. Now, each of you would have a favorite. I have a favorite as well, but they all do the same thing. The first is your while loop. The second is your do while loop. And the third is your for loop. Let's try it out. Let's check the first one, the while loop. Now, the while loop, this is the syntax for it. The command is while. Then in that bracket, there will be a condition. And as long as that condition is true, Java will keep on executing the code in that curly braces. The moment the condition becomes untrue, Java stops. So let's see an example here. I've declared this is a main method. This is a class. The class name is while example. It's a main method because it has the main. And I declared an integer variable and I made it 1. And I'm telling Java while 1 is less than or equals to 10, keep printing the value of I. Now I is 1, so the first thing I'll print is 1. Now this is where your increment operator comes handy. So I'm telling Java, every time you print, while you're done printing, add +1 to I. So I now becomes 2. So it goes, okay, so it prints 1, then it prints out 1, then it makes it 2. Then it goes, well, is 2 less than 10? Yes, it is. It prints out 2 again, then it makes it 3. Then it goes around again, is 3 less than 10? So this code will basically print out the numbers from 1 till 9, I believe. So let's try it out. I'm going to copy this code into our Eclipse. Because of time, I'm going to delete my old one. All right, and I'm going to copy the code from there. So I'll declare variable int I is equal to 1, and I have a while loop. I think it's a lowercase. Good. So when you type in all the commands in Java, typically or in Eclipse, they're in purple. So when I type while and it's not in purple, I know I've done something wrong. And it also tells me, you move your mouse here, you can see that Eclipse tells you something is wrong. So a while loop, and what's the condition? As long as I is less than or equal to 10, then I open up my bracket. And once you open up your bracket, Eclipse gives you a closing bracket. So what should I do? Print. So I'll say system.out.print the value of I. And I want to increase I every time by 1. So I'll do this, and I'll terminate my code. So let's save this. Let's run. Did you use greater than or equal to? Oh, very good question. Oh, thank you. It should be less than or equals to. Thanks. It's good to know you guys are paying attention. So let's run this. And you can see I got my numbers printed. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. If I was to remove the equals to, then I would only get the numbers from 1 till 9. So as you can see, Java just went round from 1 till 9. So that's the difference between your operators. So that's a while loop, and I just counted essentially to 10. I told Java to go around 10 times. Let's check the other one. Now I like this one because in my mind this is more English. The do while loop is saying, do this, Java, until this condition becomes false. I don't know, it sounds more natural to me, but you can have a favorite as well. And it's the same thing we're doing, but we have a different command. So we have the do, so it's saying Java, keep printing and keep adding +1 while this condition is true. It's the same thing. So let's try that as well. I'll change this code to a do while loop. So I'll say do, and Java Eclipse always helps me in my bracket. So what do you want to do? I want to keep printing and keep adding +1 while my condition is true. Now in your while, you don't need your brackets here, so you make sure you take it out, and don't forget to terminate the code. So let's save this and let's run this as well, and I got the same thing. So that's the do while loop. What if I was to do minus minus? Can someone tell me what would happen here if I was to do minus minus? And you can type it out or you can go off mute. Can you tell me what I will get on the console if I was to run this code? So I'm trying to go backwards now. Anybody?
Yeah, you'll get negative numbers.
Okay, let's try it out. Good. This is what we call an infinite loop. As you can see here, you can crash your computer because this code will never stop running. It will never stop running. So be very careful with Java to make sure that your codes don't have an infinite loop. Always make sure that all your loops terminate properly. And now you guys are becoming IT people. This is what hackers try to do to your system. When they hijack your system, what they're trying to do is a very simple line of code, 5 lines, can bring down your entire system. It can crash the entire bank. It can crash the entire government's website. Because what they try to do is have what we call an infinite loop. So now you guys know how to hack now. You know how to bring down some machine. But thankfully in Eclipse has a way to stop the infinite loop. And what you do is you click on this red button here to say, okay, I think I've done something wrong. This code is not ending. Please terminate my code. Most of the time, if you're trying to count backwards, your int I will be 10. And you're saying stop while I is less than or equal to 1. So now what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to count 10 backwards, right? 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4. And, oh, did I do something wrong? While I only got 10. While I is less than or equal to 1.
The while should be I should be greater than equal to 1.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking as well. Very good. Thanks. So there we go. So this is the model you go use for it when maybe you're trying to go backwards, and you can change your plus plus to your minus minus. All right. So that's our do while loop. The next one is a for loop. And the for loop is the most popular type just because you have 2 lines of code. If you notice here, we're trying to do the same thing, but we only have 2 lines of code. So, developers always like this because your code will run faster, your customers will like your product better, your tests will run faster. So that's why the for loop is the most popular type of loop. And let's break it down. Let's see what we're trying to do. So the for loop has 3 statements inside of the syntax. The first statement is what we call the initialization, which is your starting point. Where do you want to start? So you're saying, well, I want to start by making I equals to 1. Then you terminate that and you move on to the next statement, which is your condition, which is when should I stop? Okay, I want to stop when I, I'll keep going as long as I is less than or equals to 10. Then lastly, you have your increment or you have your decrement. So with this very simple line of code, we can achieve the same thing. So let's try it out. So I'll remove all this stuff. I don't need this as well. I don't have to declare it. I can do all of it at the same time using my for loop. So for int I is equal to 1. I is greater than or less than 10. I think it should be the and I plus plus. Now what do you want to do? I want to print the value of I. Now there's something wrong. Java doesn't like, oh, right there, I'm missing I. So Java is saying, if you can see right here, I knew something was wrong because all the I's getting underlined. And Java is saying, I don't know what this I means. See, it's saying I can't resolve the variable I, so I know that I missed to declare I over here. There we go. So int I is 1, keep going as long as I is less than or equals to 10, and I plus plus. There we go. So with few lines of code, we've achieved the same thing. And if I want to count backwards, it's the same idea as well. I'll make this 10. I'll make this greater than. And I'll make this minus minus. And I can go in the reverse way. And I keep messing up with my greater than and less than. Oh, infinite loop. Anyways, you get the idea. So please keep using your for loop. Is it better? I think it's much better than the while loop or the do while loop, just because you have fewer lines of code. So if you have any questions, you can stop me, or you can go off mute, or you can type your questions in the messages. We also have a concept called for each loop. And to explain this, I have to explain what we know as an array. So what's an array in Java? So far, we've been declaring a variable, integer, say a, and we're storing only one value in that variable. What if you want to store multiple values in a variable for whatever reason? We want to store multiple values. The way to do that in Java is to create an array. So an array, it's a variable that can store multiple values. And the reason why we created an array is also to save memory. You know, why create int a equals to 1, int b equals to 2, int c, int d, int a? You're creating so many memory blocks. You know, so some wise people said, okay, why don't we allow users to actually just create one variable where they can store multiple values? So we call that an array in Java. We'll come back to this later on in class. Now, to create an array, this is the syntax. An array can be an integer if you want to store numbers, integers in that array. An array can be a character if you want to store characters inside that array. Array can be a string if you want to store strings inside of it. It can be a double if you want to store decimals inside of it. In this example here, we are storing is an integer, and we are storing numbers inside of it. So the command is your data type, the name of the array. This could be anything you call it. And this square bracket here tells Java that this is an array. And if you notice, we've seen this before in the main method as well. Can you see here? This is an array. So now you're getting it better. So main method is essentially just a collection of different, how many characters or numbers can an array store? As many as possible. There's no limitation. You can store 20, 30, 40, as many as you want. Okay.
Excuse me, Ty, can you please repeat this, please?
Can I please do what?
Can you please repeat this?
Yeah. So I'll just tell you that you've seen the array somewhere else before. The main method is actually an array as well. Is, you know, this square bracket here, if you notice, the main method is a string array because we're declaring the data type and we're telling Java that this is the name of the array and we can store so many things inside of it. But don't worry about this, you know, for now, but just know that the main method as well is essentially an array. But now coming back to an array, arrays are typically where we use them to store multiple variables, multiple data. The rules of the array is you need to store the same data type inside of your array. So if it's an integer, I can't store 12, then 23.5. Java says no. It has to be the same data type. And the declaration of an array is, you know, you declare the name of it, and you show this symbol, and Java knows, okay, that's an array. So let's create an array quickly in Eclipse. So I can say an array integer. I can call it maybe a bucket where I want to store so many things, and I'll do this. Now Java knows, okay, this guy's trying to create an array. I can now provide the value for my array. So I can say the first one is number 1, the second one is 2, the third one is 3, the fourth one is 4, and 5. I can keep going. 6, or 5 again, 6, and voila. I've saved myself so much time, then instead of doing int A is 1, int B is 2, it's a lot of memory space, a lot of typing. In C is 3, right? Why do all this? Int D is 4. If they are the same data type, just put everything in an array, and with one line of code, you're done. So that's why we use arrays. Now, the purpose of that note, of that slide, is to show you how to loop within an array. So Java has created a for each loop. Can we mix characters and integer in one array? No, you cannot. So watch, if I try to do this now, Java would not allow me to put a character in here. Did it? It shouldn't allow me to do that. I'm surprised there's no red. Okay, let me try to put a decimal. Let's see if I try to put a 4.3. So this doesn't allow me. This is a red right off the bat. It's telling me I can't convert decimals to an integer. So that's what I thought as well. So I'm surprised that he actually allowed me to put in, but let me try a C. Okay, same thing here. It didn't allow me to put a character. You see, I can't resolve blah, blah, blah. But when I put my character in a single quote, for whatever reason, Java allows it, but I'm sure it's not allowed. I can't print it. I'm sure Java will complain when I'm trying to print it. But try it out, and play with it and let me know what you get. But the general rule is that the data type of the array, your values has to match the same data type. All right. So keep asking the questions. I think you guys like the chat. Some of you like to talk. So I think it's both effective. Not getting error. Okay. So maybe it allows it, but let's try and print it. I'll come back to that. Very good. I'll come back. I'll try and print this, and let's see what gets printed. So we created something called a for each loop that allows us to print out the content of an array without having, the counter, the plus plus, without having, oh, no error. Okay, that's good to know. Thanks. So the for each loop allows us to print out what's in the array in a very, very simple way. And all I have to do is type in the for, and the moment I put in my array in there, Java knows, okay, this is a for each loop. And it's a very, very simple way for me to print out what's in my array. So let's try it. Let me try to print out this bucket. So I'll go for. Now, the typical command is this, but once Java sees that you have an array in there, it goes, okay, this is now a for each loop. So I can declare my, what I want to print. Let's say I, and I'll put my double colon and the name of my array, bucket. And what do you want to print out? I want to print out I. So I can say system.out.println, and I can print out I. Now, so, I've been deleting things. I've been taking things off that I don't want Java to work on. A lot of times in Java, we can comment things out. When you make a comment, Java would not run that code. And to comment things out is essentially a double backslash right here. So this command, number 6, would not run because it's been commented out already. And you'll notice that the comments, they have a green color. So if you notice here, this is a green color. So I can do the same thing. I can comment out this line. It goes green. That means Java will ignore it. I can comment out this line. It goes green. Java will ignore it. And I can do the same here as well. So that's how we comment in Java. This is a comment by line. Sometimes if I want to comment a group of code, there's another way of doing that. So if I want to comment out, say, a big group of code, and I don't want to go line for line, there's a shortcut, just like your SQL. I'll put the first backslash, and I'll put the star, which is all. So you can see now the IT, some symbols, means the same thing in different places. Then if you notice now, Java is taking out my entire code. So now I have to close the comment by putting the star and backslash. So those are the two different ways to comment things out in your code. Now let's run this. Let's see what gets printed out. Okay, so we got back 1, 2, 3. Okay, I know what Java did. So what Java did was Java converted this into a number. So we call that the ASCII code. For the non-IT people, don't worry about that. You don't need to know that to get a job. But if you're curious, every character in the computer has a number in the computer's memory. That's how the computer works. Computers don't know letters. Everything is all ones and zeros into the computer. So what Java did was Java converted this into some kind of number, and that's why he actually allowed me to save this character. So we got 99, then we got 5, and we got 6. Okay? So that's the for each loop. And the for each loop is used whenever we're trying to print an array. And an array is used whenever we're trying to store multiple data or multiple things in one variable to save time. And don't forget, the smaller your code, so the less line of code you have, the faster it will take for your regression test cases to run. All right. The next statement or the next code I want to teach you is what we call the break statement. The break statement is used to break a loop or to break a switch statement. And what you're trying to say is, Java, okay, you're counting to 10, but when you get to 5, or if 5 is there, then please stop. And for we QAs, this is a very, very powerful function for us. And let me give you an example. Let's give you a real-life example. So you have been hired to test, say, a website. And this website throws out maybe your customer's age, the age of the customer, right? And it throws it out randomly. Like you don't know, maybe it throws out 5, it throws out maybe the 20, maybe it throws out 65, it throws out 70, it throws out 18, it throws out 35. And you don't know exactly when that sequence would show up. The next time you run the code, it might be backwards. It might be 35 first, 70 next. It might be 20 next. It might be 65 next, right? But you know that once you get to 18, that's your magic number. You want to stop because that's what you're looking for. You want to pass that test case. So the test case is saying that verify that the software or the application you're testing returns 18 years old. Okay, that's your acceptance criteria. That's when you're doing it manually, that's when you pass the test case. Now, how do you convert this into programming? You can still have your loop going on because you know that you need to spin around so many times to get different numbers, but you know your magic number is 18. But the problem is I don't know when 18 will show up. So to do that, we use the break command. So look at what we're trying to do here. I'm looking for 5. 5 is my is the magic number that I'm looking for. And I'm telling Java that, okay, keep spinning. So spin, my bracket starts. Now, I'm telling Java now that as you're spinning, please, whenever I becomes 5, stop spinning. And Java does that by breaking. And it breaks it out. And I'm saying, by the way, print the value of I so I can see what's going on. So what we've done here is we've nested the if statement inside of the for loop. Because if you notice, the bracket of the for loop starts here and it ends right here. So that's your break statement. And if we're to try this code, so let's try this code, we will get back on the console 1, 2, 3, and 4. So let's try it out. So I'll go back into my for loop. So I can uncomment, maybe let me comment this out now. I don't need this anymore. So I'll take this guy and comment it out. And I'll open this up. So this counts to 10. Let's make it forward counting and not backward counting. Unless I is less than or equal to 10. Okay, just make sure, save your work. Let's make sure it runs. Okay, we counted to 10. Now I'm saying, as you're counting, if I, now can someone tell me, why am I using a double equals to and not this? If I is 5. There are two big differences, right? If I'm doing this, I'm essentially saying the value of 5 is equal to I. And that would not work in your if statement, because your if statement is expecting something to return true or false. Good, Sonia. Sonia got it. So please don't forget that if you're doing your if statement, it is a condition. Java is expecting a Boolean, which is true or false. So that's why it's a double equals to. So I'm telling Java, okay, once you get here, if you get this, please break and stop. In the class example, the printing was done outside of the break. In this example, the printing is done above. Let's run it and let's see what we'll get. So because the printing is done above, that's why I got 5 coming back. But you can see now that when Java got 5, Java terminated the loop. If I move this down, then I won't get. You can see 5 was not returned. Please understand that, because what I'm telling Java is break. So Java did not have time to do this because it broke, it stopped. But while the printing was above the break, Java still had time to print 5. So that's our break statement, and you can please try it out as well. Make sure you get the same result as me. Sometimes you might need to count, inside of a for loop. We don't normally use this a lot in testing, so I'm not going to spend too much time on this. But I want you guys to observe this code, in your personal time, and let me know in the next class if you have any questions. But yeah, sometimes we do it where we count in one loop that starts. So an example is this. I can have one loop that counts maybe 1, and inside that 1, I'm counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Then I go to 2, the next loop. And inside that 2, I'm also counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We call it inner looping. It's not very popularly used by testers because most of the time we only count, the big loops. But it's nice to know. And so please, I give you a code that will show you what will be printed out on the screen. And it just helps you understand inner loops. If you notice here as well, we have a break in there. And if you notice here, we're concatenating. So this is concatenation. And all I'm doing here is I'm adding a space, because if I didn't put this space in there, then this will show up as 11, and this will show up as 22, 13, 21. But with a space, you can see that there are two different variables. Okay, now what is continue? Continue is the opposite of break. Continue is essentially telling Java to skip. That once you find this condition, please don't do anything to it. Just skip and move on to the next one. So it could be the same thing that you're trying to do in the example I gave you. Let's go back to our class example that I gave you. Maybe you want to skip 18. Maybe you only want to do something. You want to check 3. You want to check 20. You want to check 65. You want to check 70. And you want to check 35. But you don't want to check 18 because for whatever reason. Maybe that's part of the business rule. So how do you do that? You use the word continue. So Java knows, okay, Ty is asking me that whenever I see 18, just skip 18 and go to the next one. And that's what we've done in your class notes right here. We're saying, let's create a loop that counts till 10. Start counting from 1. And every time you loop, add +1. And stop when you get to 10. The next line says, once you get to 5, please skip. I would have loved Java to use the keyword skip, but for whatever reason, they didn't choose that. Or maybe skip is already taken, I don't know. But they called it continue. So I'm saying skip, then print out your results. So it goes, okay, 1, it didn't skip. 2, it did not skip. 3, it did not. 4, it did not. Oh, 5, it skipped 5. Then it carried on to print the rest. So to try that out, we can go back into our Eclipse. And instead of break, I'm just going to use the word continue. Save this. And you can see I got back all the numbers apart from 5. So 5 is the missing one. So don't forget when to use your skip, and don't forget when you need to use continue. So as always, if you have any questions, you can go off mute or you can send me a comment. So the same idea here, I'm just trying to show you how to use your inner loop. We don't normally use this a lot in testing, so I'll say don't worry too much about it. But it's nice to know how to count inside another count. You might need that at some point. So this is a class exercise that we can work on. Write a Java program to reverse a number. So let's spend 10 minutes. I want us to do number 6. Write a Java program to reverse a number. And let me give you what I'm looking for. So if the number is 5005, no, that's a bad example. 5136. Write me a Java program that will reverse this number and display 6315. So it's 11:10. I'm going to stop you guys at 11. Let's say 11:15 because of time. And whoever has done it, I will pass control to that person so that the entire class can see that person's screen and that person can show us how they've done it. Okay, so I'm going to go on mute just to get a drink, and I'll catch you back at 11:15. So write me a Java program that reverses a number, and the number we provided is 5136, and I want 6315 displayed. There are many ways to do it. I can give you a hint. You can use an array. You can decrement your loops, right? And you can print. You can use a variable. You can, anyways, I'm going to shut up. I think that's enough. That's enough hint. Okay, guys, so I'll be back at 11:15, and I'll pass control to anybody that wants to show us. Thanks. Okay, so I'm back, and let me see if anybody has done it. Is anybody ready to show us what they've done or how they did it? Any volunteers? Everyone is quiet. I know, it's a Sunday morning. I'll give you a break. All right, no volunteers. Okay, what I'll do is we're going to do arrays first, then I'll come back to that. Okay, so we're going to finish up here. And once I'm done teaching you guys array, we will come back to that exercise and we'll wrap up the class. Okay, let me see what else we have to do today. Okay, good. So I think we'll stop here. Okay, so arrays. I spoke about it briefly before, but let's spend some time looking at arrays in detail. So everyone knows array is a bucket, is a collection in memory where we store the same data types. I told you guys it has to be the same data type, and array has a fixed set of length. The length of the array is fixed. Let me explain what that means. When I created my array the first time in Eclipse, Java knew the size of my array because I said int bucket 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So Java knew that, okay, Ty wanted me to create an array called bucket that needs 7 spaces in memory. So that's why we say arrays, they are typically fixed in length. Something that's a bad thing, something that's a good thing, it depends on who you talk to. Now, let's look at this example here. This array is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So I've created an array where I can store 10 different data or variables inside of it. But this is where it gets a little bit confusing, because if you're trying to reference the first box, you have to say, I want the index 0. I know, I wasn't the one that designed this. If I designed this, I wouldn't have done that this way. But you need to remember this. If you're trying to access the second box, you can't say array 2. No, it's going to come here because Java starts counting from 0. So 0 is actually a number as well. So that's why array length is slightly different from the array index. The length is 10. So Java knows create 10 different boxes. But if you're now trying to access each box, that's now an index. So this is an index 0, index 1, index 2, index 3, and the last index will be index 9. If you try to access index 10, Java will throw an error saying that doesn't exist. So that's something you have to get your head around, to understand arrays. We have two types of arrays, and the good news here is we QAs will only use the single dimension array. I left the other one there for you guys in case you're curious, you want to know what developers do. They use more of the multi-dimensional. But for us, it's very simple. It's single dimension, and we can get all our test cases done. So how do we create an array? I showed you guys already this example where you mention the data type. So that could be an integer, that could be a string, it could be a character, it could be a Boolean, it could be whatever. You declare your data type and the name of the array and the square bracket. So this square bracket tells Java, oh, this guy needs an array. Now, there are other ways of doing it as well. I don't like the other two. I think this is more natural to me, where data type, name of the array, and array. But there are other ways of doing it. I can say the data type. I can now put the square bracket and now put the name of the array. These two flavors are the same. It's just kind of showing you that I can put a space after my data type, or I can put this space, before the name of the array. I like the third way better. It's just natural, meaning this is more natural to me. Int a array instead of int square bracket a or int bracket space a. When you're creating your main method, Java uses this. If you notice your main method, I think is either one of them. But let's check it out. Let's go back into our Eclipse, and you can see your main method here. Java uses the string, right? Then the array, then the space, and the name of the array. That's how Java likes to do it. I wouldn't do it that way. I would have done string, my array name, and square brackets. Okay? But now you know, you can read your code better, and you can see what's going on. So that's an array, and that's how we declare arrays. Now, when you're declaring your array, Java expects you to tell it the size that you want your array to have. And we call that, you can declare to Java the size of your array. Let me show you an example. Let's leave this slide and let's see an example. This is how you tell Java the size of your array. And we call that declaration. You're declaring something, meaning you're creating an array, and you're instantiating it. Instantiate means you're setting the length or the size of it. So look at what I'm doing here. I'm saying int a is an array. Everyone knows that. I'm now telling Java, I need 5 boxes, right? I need this array to be as big so you can hold 5 different integers. So we call that declaration and instantiation. And once I've declared it already, look at what I'm doing here now. I'm now putting values into those boxes. As I told you guys, your index, you have to start counting from 0. So I'm saying A, 0, make it 10. A, 1, make it 20. A, 2, make it 70, and so forth. If I put A, 5, Java is going to say, You cannot do that. It doesn't exist. If you want A5, then your length has to be 6. So these are a very popular interview question. They might try to trick you and give you a code and tell you, why would this code not work? And what they'll do is they'll make this 5, and they'll now have another line in here saying A5 is equal to maybe 60. And they'll tell you, why would this code not work? So please don't forget the array, their do's and don'ts. And I think typing is better. Practicing, when you practice this by yourself, I think that's how it sticks. Now, let's see, how do we print, inside of an array? I showed you guys one way of doing that, using the for each loop. But the good news here is there's also and I can use my for loop as well. And in my for loop, everyone knows, we're starting. You have to initiate where you want to start from. And because for me, I want to print what's inside of the array, so it makes sense to start from 0 because I know that 0 is actually a box in the array. Now, the good news here is Java it allows me to call this function called length. And this function, what it does is it basically prints out, 5, because A is an array. So A.length is essentially typing 5. So I'm saying keep spinning or keep printing as long as I is less than 5. So that means it's going to go 0, print, 1, print, 2, print, 3, print, 4, print, 5. No, 5 is not less than 5. I'm going to stop. So that's how we print the content of an array. And to be honest with you guys, I like this way than the for each loop. Because the for each loop, we don't use it a lot, so sometimes we forget, even how to write the syntax. And also, this is more flexible because the for each loop, it just cannot print everything in the array. I don't tell it. Let's go back into it. I have no control. Like, if I want to print just these two guys, this for loop is useless because it's just going to print everything. But with sorry, that's the for each loop. But the for loop, I can control it. I can say only print this guy. I can say when you get here, break. I can say when you get here, continue. I can say when you get here, skip. I can do so much more with my printing. And that's why most QAs don't really use the for each loop. So let's go back to our array and let's try to print what's inside of my array. So I'm going to copy this code and we're going to try it out very quickly. So same thing here. I'll comment out all this code that I don't need. Okay, then let's start again. I can start from here. I'll declare my array first. So I'm declaring an integer, an array. I'll give it a name. Let's say, call it, I don't think Java will allow me to use, he actually did. I can use array. I'll make it this, and I'll say, so now I'm going to declare it to say new and int, because it's an integer. If this was a character, this would be a character. If this was a string, this would be a string. So we're using the same initialization, and I'm going to tell Java, please make it 5 boxes. Now I'm going to put things inside of the box. So I'm going to say array. For my first one, please insert 1. Okay. Array. For my second one, please insert 2. Array. So you can also be trying the same thing while I'm trying to. Okay, so now the array is populated, and let's print. So to print, I'll go for, what is my condition? I'm starting int I, that's my driver, and I'm going to say make I start from 0. And when should I stop? Please stop when I is less than, or keep going, as long as I is less than the length of my array. Now notice what's going to happen, guys. If I press dot, Java is going to tell me all the different functionalities that it has for an array. So length is right there. So you guys don't have to guess, remember all this stuff. you have an ID today that tries to help you. So I can just select the length and right there. Did you greater than sign? Oh, while 5 is less than, yes, sorry, I keep messing up my less than and greater than. As long as there's no space. Int I, yeah. Okay, let's keep going. And I'm now saying I plus plus. So let's print. So I can say print out the content of I. And I can save. System out print ln, and we're printing array. Okay, so let me save my work and let's run this, and I got my content printed 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Instead of doing it, instead of declaring this way, I can also do it with one line that we did right here. This does the same thing. So I could as well done int array, declare it, and right away just give you values. And I can do this as well. I can do 3, 4, 5. And I can take this out. Take this out. Take this out. And take this out. And I'll get the same thing. I'll get the same result. Right there. But I did it this way just to show you the index and show you the difference between array indexes and the length of the array. It's a very, very popular interview question where they will try and trick you, and they'll give you this code and tell you, why would this code fail? Or is there anything wrong with this code? Once you see the length is 5, then you know that the index cannot be 5 because you start counting from 0. And that's why it makes sense here. This is actually 5. This here, if I was to remove this and type in 5, I will get the same result because the length is 5. Oh, I index. Oh, okay, it doesn't like it. It's saying I think it has to be 4. Okay, index out of bounds. So we're having some problem now because it's telling me I'm trying to get to something that doesn't exist. So it's always better just to use the length of the array, and that way you know you're safe. And I've done something wrong here. Oh, this code. Array, yeah. Sorry. See, you're telling me, Ty, there's something wrong in your code, and it's line number 32. So it tries to help you a lot, trying to help you to see what's going on. And right here, line number 32, this is not right. And that was why everything was failing. Okay. So let's go back to our class notes. So now we know what arrays are. We know what a single dimension array is. We know how to declare the size of an array. We know how to add things inside of the array. And we know how to print, what's inside of the array. That's good. Multi-dimensional array is like Excel spreadsheet where you have rows and columns, and I can create 3 rows and 3 columns, and I can insert different data into those rows and columns. We don't use this. I've never used this in my career. Most QAs don't use this. They don't ask you this in an interview, but if you're curious and you want to know more about arrays, then you can please read this slide and also see what I've done here. So multidimensional, you're creating 2 boxes. I can provide values like this, of this nature, and you can go through. And I'm printing, now I'm printing inside 4, because I'm printing inside 2 different arrays. But we don't need this, so you don't have to spend time on this. Now, arrays are not perfect. They have their own limitations. And the first limitation is the size. Java needs to know the size of your array. At the time you're creating it, it needs to know. You can't just tell Java, give me unlimited, array in the memory. It's going to go, no, no, no. Java needs to know exactly the size of your array. Another limitation is arrays cannot hold multiple data types. So I can't store integers, Boolean, double, characters. No, I can only store the same data type. Okay. Okay. So to fix this, some people said, well, mostly developers, they complained and said, well, what if I want to store different data types in an array? Like I want to store Boolean, data, string, everything inside an array. Java said, okay, we're going to give you something that would allow you to store multiple data types. And Java created what we call an object. So an object is very similar to an array, but an object allows you to store multiple things. Now look at this example here. I declared the data type object. I call it A. A can be 10, which is a number. A can be a string, as you can see in double quotes. A can also be a Boolean. Now Java allows this just because of your object keyword. And let's see how this would work. So let's try to create an object array, and let's see how this would work. So the idea is the same way. We declare them the exact same way. You start off with object, the name of your array, and the array symbol. Java knows, oh, okay, this is an object. And right here, I'm declaring object A, an array, new object. I'm saying Java, please give it 5 different boxes. And right here, you can see my first box is an integer. My second box is a double. My third box is a string. My fourth box is a character. And my last box is a Boolean. Object as well, they have a length. So because it's an array essentially. So Java also allows me to call the length of that array, and that way I can print what's in my bucket. So don't forget, in an interview they might ask you, okay, arrays, tell me their limitation and how do you fix it? So yes, arrays then only use the same data type, but if I ever need to store multiple different things in the same variable or the same array, I'll make it an object, and that way I can still achieve what I'm trying to do. So try this out yourself when you guys, once we're done the class. So now with what we know with the arrays we know now, let's go back to that class exercise and let's try it again, this one. And I think it should be a lot easier now for everybody. Write a Java program to reverse a number. And think of your array. So now that we know arrays, we know how to use it. Let me go back to the exercise. So let's pretend that we have an array that can store, I'm trying to store 4 things inside of the array. So I know the length has to be 3, right? The length has to be 3. Why do we type a.length in for loop? You don't have to. I'll come back to that. Let me explain how to do this. So we're trying to reverse these numbers. So I can store these guys in an array. Make your array an integer because they're all the same data type. And when you're printing, print reverse. Do you get it? So don't print from here, which is what we've been doing so far. Print from the back. So try to print this first, print this first. So when you're printing out, I want to see 6, 3, 1, 5. So let's try that out. I think it should be easy now. I'm giving everybody the solution, essentially. So we create an array. That's the hint. Create an array and store the number or the numbers 5, 1, 3, 6 in your array and print reverse. That's all you have to do. So this is the last thing we're going to do before we wrap up. It's 11:45 now. I'll give you guys maybe 5-10 minutes. So maybe at 11:50 or 55 or 52, we can stop. And anyone that's done it will show me what they've done, and we can wrap up the class. Okay, so while you're doing that, someone asked me a question. I would answer your question once we have this. Why do we type a.length in for okay? So Ashwini asked me this question. She said, in the for loop, why are we using a.length as the condition of the loop? Ashwini, is just easy to use a.length. Otherwise, you need to kind of, okay, how is my length? How big is my length? Okay, then you now put in the number in there. You can put in the actual number, or you can just use a.length. Both of them would work. So I can use 3 because that's my length, right? Oh, sorry, 4. That's 4 is my length. Or I can say a.length, the same thing. Okay, guys, I'm going to go on mute, and let's see who can crack this. But it should be easy now. Create an array. 4 length is your array, right? Store these numbers inside of it, and print in a reverse order. Okay, all right. So, do we have anybody, any volunteer that would like to show us what they've done? I am able to print in the reverse order, but there is an error as well. Okay, so one person that was the Virtue got it going. The Virtue says she can print, but she has an error. Okay. The Virtue, do you want to share your computer screen with everybody?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, I'll pass control to you. So you have to accept the control. Good. So let's see what you've done. Okay, can everybody see what it's doing?
See, this is my code. I have made an integer with the numbers provided at 5136 and then decrementing the indices by 1 and printing it till the end. So it's giving me 6315, which is the reverse, but I'm not able to avoid this, the -1 value.
Okay. So you have int a. Anybody else has this problem? Okay, so I think nobody else. As long as I is less than, remove the equals to in your condition. Yeah. Now try it. Save your work.
It's auto saving. This is coming again.
Okay. So we have, okay, let's walk through it together. Int I, so you're starting counting from 3, and you're saying keep going as long as 3 is
less than a. The length of the array.
And the length, what's the length of the array? It's 4.
It's 4, right?
Yeah, the length is 4. So your first.
So it's with 3210.
So. So you're saying keep going. You're starting from 3. Then you're saying keep going as long as 3 is less than 4. And 3 is not less than 4. Well, 3 is. As long as 3 is less than 4, okay? Now you're saying 3 minus, okay? So print A is 3. So it goes A is 3, it prints 6. Then the next time it goes, you're saying I is now 2. So you're saying as long as 2 is less than 4, okay? So minus, print 2. And you keep going. You print as long as 1 is less than 4, and as long as 0 is less than 4. So what you're now missing is you need to break.
I need to break, yeah. I was thinking on that right now.
You need to break.
Break at -1 or less than 0, anything less than 0.
Good.
I like that.
You don't want -1, and -1 is less than 4. So if you try to print what is in -1, but you can see the error message is telling you Java array index out of bounds -1. It's trying to tell you there's no -1 index. So you now have to break to say if. So before you print,
okay.
So type in if. In line number 9, put a space, and let's put a condition in there before you print. Okay, if, good. If I is less than 0. Or if I is equal to 0, break.
Or equal to 0. No. Less than 0. Equal to 0, I need to print.
Good. Okay. So just break it. Good.
Much work.
Yeah, what I would do is I'll put your if statement, put it above your printing.
Sorry?
So line number 10, Yeah, move that before you start printing. Now you have, is that's not less than, that's greater than. That's why there's a problem. So change the symbol to less than.
Okay.
System.
Date. What is the date code?
Oh, I think you've done something. If
Unreachable.
yeah, let me see. Let me see if I can help you take control of this. So,
I can give you control. Hold on.
no, I'm just mouse control. I don't want to. I'll just say mouse control. Okay. So what I've done? You put a you were breaking this code. Put in this.
There is a bracket less than. So one more curly bracket below on below line number 11.
No, I think you're okay. So this bracket here, this bracket is for your for loop. This bracket is for your if
Okay,
statement.
great.
For loop.
Okay.
Good. This is your method, and that's your class. Now run this.
Yeah.
It should work.
Still giving the X no on line number 12.
No, I think it should be okay now. Unreachable
Unreachable.
code. Okay, code. If I is less than, if I is, okay. It's working for me with different condition in for loop. Okay, somebody else got it working. If I is less, this should work too. This should be, I'm trying to see why system out dot print. A is equal to I. This should print the first time. Run it, run it. Good, there we go.
Yeah.
That's why I'm like, this should work as well. Okay, so guys, I was trying to test you guys to use your for loop, to use your if statement, and I wanted to see if you guys knew how to break. Because in this example, you know, the loop will still keep going into minus because it's counting backwards. So this is where your break comes into it. Right. Thanks, Virtue. Can you send us the code? Just
No problem. Thank you.
yeah, so I can share with the class. Okay, I'll take control back.
Yeah.
Somebody else did it in a different way. So let me see that person's message. So Shanu did it in a different way. Shanu, do you want to show the class what you've done? Do you want to share your screen? Okay, good. So I'm going to pass control to Shanu, and Shanu will show us how she did it.
Chai, I pasted the code to you on chat.
Okay, thanks.
No problem.
Okay, so let me pass control to Shane. Oh, you don't have the app. Okay, never mind. That's going to take some time to download the app. So Shane, make sure you download the app once you're done. But in the meantime, can you post your code to me so I can share with the class? So this is the Virtue's way of doing it. Okay, good. So this is good. So let me share with everybody what you guys did. It's my Eclipse. Okay. So one of your classmates did it this way. This would work as well. Okay, so this would work, and somebody else did it this way. Let's copy the code. Ah, okay, so you use length minus 1. Smart, good. So she did length minus 1. And wait, did she use and as well? I hope I didn't delete that code. Length minus 1. IGT is equal to minus minus. Okay. I'm not sure. I think this is what she did. She did it this way. So I is, oh, okay, good, good. So she's actually, instead of trying to even count, it was a typo. Okay, so instead of trying to count herself, she said, start with length minus 1. So because she knows length is 4, so start with I is 3. That's what she's saying. So this here is saying I is 3. You know, but right, he did I is 3. She did I is length minus 1. Then condition to keep going, I believe was this. So our condition to keep going was this. And she did I minus minus. Good. So that's also another way to do it without breaking. Oh, I is greater than, as long as I is greater than or equal to 0. Good. Okay, so this is what she did. Does everybody get it? For the new guys, you know, it's going to take time. I'm going to share this code with you guys, but you need to practice. Try to understand this way of doing it using your break. You know, and try to understand the way she did it. She said, okay, start with 3 because length is 4. So she said, start with 3 and keep going as long as I is greater than or equal to 0. So the moment I becomes negative, this loop will stop. He didn't do it that way. He said, keep going as long as I is less than the length. But once I becomes minus, please break. So there are 2 different ways of doing it, or maybe perhaps more ways, but they are all correct. All right. So guys, that's the end of week 8. Let's summarize very quickly what we've done today. I'm going to share this code with you guys by email. In today's class, we've finished Java data types. We've talked about Java operators. We spoke about Java, how to do conditional statements in Java. And in our conditional statements, we described the if statement. We described the if and else statement. We described the if, else, if statement. And we finished up with the switch statement. Then we moved on to loops. And in our loops, we described the do loop. We described the do while loop. And we described the do until loop. Then we spoke about arrays. And in arrays, we talked about the length of the array. We talked about the indices or index of an array. And we also told you the limitations of an array. Then we moved on and we did objects. and we spoke about object is essentially, it doesn't have no limitations. It has no array limitations. If you know all this very well, and then you're really, really good into becoming an awesome automation tester. In the next class, we're going to carry on, and I'll teach you guys, what classes are. We're going to do classes in detail. We're going to do the string object class in detail, and a few other topics. Okay, so right now everyone should be able to do their coursework. Pretty much you need. Oh, we also did the break. We did break, and we did continue. And with this is enough to make everyone complete your coursework. Any questions before we wrap up? Alrighty. Okay, guys. Thanks very much for your time. You guys were a good student. There was no background noise. I was very excited about that. And I'm going to send a video now. Give me about 5 minutes for joining me to make up the video. To watch this video, copy the link and paste it on Chrome. Okay? I will try to also put this video on YouTube so you can watch it on your phone or anywhere. But before I do that, just copy the link and paste the link on your Chrome browser, and you should be able to watch the entire class again. And sometime today, I'll put it on YouTube so you guys can watch it on your device or anywhere you are. Thanks, everybody, and I'll see you next Saturday. For attendance, we'll complete that in the next class. And for payment as well, just know how much you're supposed to pay if you're doing your manual payment, so that next week, you can pay for everything all at once. All right. Thanks, everybody, and have a lovely weekend. Okay. Take care, Ruby, and take care, guys. Bye.